All right, let's call to order this meeting of the Mount Airy Planning Commission. And let's stand and do a pledge of allegiance to start off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Maybe the chair can talk.
I did not
Okay.
see it.
I
Do we need to,
additional time to make
need
that,
additional time?
to repair that.
Okay.
Yes.
We were attempting to try to have minutes ready, but we're not quite there, so we'll delay that. Before we get into citizen comments, I want to make a very, very brief statement. Between the last time we had the regular meeting of this commission and tonight, we've had one of our commissioners step off, Diane Gleason. Diane came aboard in March of 2009, I understand, as a backup member of the commission, and then in September, she stepped up to full status. This commission has benefited by her commitment to the town. We have benefited by her passion for the town, and she's a strong-willed individual. She always had somewhat contentious points of view, but it is valuable to have a diversity of opinion when it comes to some of these issues. So I just wanted to at least publicly acknowledge that we appreciate her service to the town and her service to this planning commission. Okay. With that, let's move on to citizen comments. If there are any items not on the agenda, for any of you who have attended tonight and you want to address us or make a comment, now's your time. Would ask you to step up to the microphone and the dais and introduce yourself and where you live, and then share with us what's on your mind. Okay. No one at all? All right. Okay. Then, Heather, let's move on into sign permits. We ready?
We are.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. The first. You're okay. Go to the home screen. There you go. And you want It's okay.
We'll get there.
Will you work on that, not at all? The Mount Airy Physical Therapy location, I'm sorry, the Mount Airy Physical Therapy Office has submitted a sign permit for our sign permit application for installation at their new location at 1301 South Main Street, also known as the Main Street Plaza. The applicant proposes to install channel lettering. The sign measures a total of 18.96 square feet and will be made out of plastic material. There will be internal illumination of the sign, and the sign will be of blue and white coloration. The rendering that printed out, because of our printer is a little off, so we apologize for that.
Okay.
We're trying to get the accurate colors. The physical therapy office is an internal tenant space, and I know that we had talked about this with Solar Eye Care and how much frontage they should actually get.
Yeah.
The most equitable way that we can, give or, use to determine how much signage they're allowed, is just to make it like an average of every other space. And we did have on the sign, the staff report that, we were attaching the signage for the Main Street Plaza, and that was omitted, but I do have it here, Scott, if you wanted to
Well,
pass this.
and I forwarded it out to all the members as well. Melissa sent it to me, and I forwarded it out.
Oh, the Main Street square footage. Oh, thank you, Melissa. I just knew you did that.
You didn't get it? You
Didn't
didn't
get it either?
Okay.
Yeah, I got that one.
Oh, the local thing, okay.
But
All
not
right,
yours.
all right, all right.
Copy,
Okay. So I'm just, okay, go.
and as you can see, the Main Street Plaza, or the Ileano Main Street Plaza is well under their, total allowable square footage of 200 square feet. So staff is recommending approval of this signage. And Mr. Ileano is here if you have any questions. But we would like to welcome this business to our southern end of Main Street.
Question from a design standpoint, and we had dinner across the street tonight. There appeared, based upon my memory of this design, there appeared to be continuity and complementariness,
It's
with
the
the other
channel
signs?
set letters.
Yeah. and all are logos, essentially.
Yeah, and they actually, I would say the font would be their logo.
Mhm.
They don't have any other logos, so it's the individual,
Mhm.
channel set letters, which does match.
Okay.
How many, I guess, unoccupied spaces are there versus signs left?
I would ask Frank, how many leasable spaces do you have left? Was
We
that
have a few
third
left.
floor? A few?
Whoa. Just for the record, it's 1311 and not 1301, but.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Now, I think we only got, we got like 2 or 3 spaces left.
Okay. And do you have available signage
Right.
space
That's
left
up,
for
Space,
those?
do you?
it's up to me, there's a property owner, and based on the tenant, and I think we do have a couple more spaces left, but it's all depends on the tenant.
Okay.
If a tenant's very it's all negotiable, if they very want,
Yeah,
some people
for-
do, some people
And then I noticed that there's 4 businesses that are no longer there, and I apologize, I don't memorize all the businesses you have in there, but the 4, it's Beer and Wine, Solo Eye Care, Cleaners, and Vino 100. Are all those signs down?
don't. I think the Vino 100 is what Solo moved into.
I remember that
So
one.
Vino 100 is the only one that
Mhm.
it's not done. There was never clean of that.
Those were permits, those were actual permits that were permitted.
I guess the question I'm asking is there signage there already that those stores that have left still exist?
I believe
Uh,
all the,
There's only one space. I think after this, we have a 1 or 2 spaces left. We can still use.
I was just trying to figure out if there was signage still on there that we had approved that was up on the building that
That
either
we're
was gonna
accounting
get
for.
replaced for a
This is gonna
credit or.
replace the Soul IQ.
So like, okay.
The
Soul
Soul
Light
IQ
Care.
moved down, the wine place moved down.
You already have Peepers.
This one is
Peepers is moving.
That's the
in.
same, People's in the
Because this
Soul.
took
Right.
over that.
Okay,
All
this
three,
list represents what's, on the building
And this is what you
stay
see.
on the building.
Okay.
And then we're gonna add the 18 point.
Basically
96
19.
square feet. So
Okay.
about
All right.
40 square feet
Thank you.
left.
okay, are we, unless you feel strongly otherwise, I'll make the motion that we approve this sign permit application for Mount Airy Physical Therapy with the design and building material that's been proposed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Lindy seconded? Okay. All in favor, let them by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign, and it passes unanimously. All right? So that brings us to Mount Airy Inn.
Okay, so just right up the street, at the Mount Airy Inn at 1401 South Main Street, they have submitted a sign permit application for internally illuminated channel set lettering. The signage that is proposed measures 20 inches in height and 12 and a half 12 feet, 6 inches wide, for a total of 26.17 square feet. And I thank Annalise, helped me out greatly getting our sign staff reports ready. There is a mistake, it says there will be no illumination of the proposed sign, but there is definitely going to be illumination. It's internally illuminated. The frontage of the subject building is 50 linear feet, and with the existing signage that was already approved signage was permitted in 2010, and we have included, not.
I was gonna say, we don't have
I-
the previous sign or
Right.
design, do we?
And
on
there is, in the rendering, you can see it underneath, that is proposed to be removed, correct, Frank?
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when they first presented this proposal with the channel set lettering, it was submitted in the color green, and, we sat down and we talked about it, and kind of felt the green maybe wasn't in keeping with the architecture, so they did make a change to burgundy. The existing sign is really gorgeous. However, they have an inherent issue that you cannot see it. And Frank can tell you that I had a little bit of a stomach ache over this one. The sign that they have is gorgeous, and it does
Doesn't have enough
meet
contrast.
the architectural character, but
Yeah.
they are having an issue with not, and Frank can elaborate,
Yep.
it's not visible. So, Frank, I don't know.
I don't suppose it can be moved up, the current, we were just saying, we prefer the current sign without knowing that issue.
Yeah, well, and it is a gorgeous sign, but I think they're trying to, make the signage, comparable to what's on the northern end of the building. I don't know if the northern end, for the signage is detracting from that, I don't know, and Frank, you can explain maybe some of the issues that
Basically,
you're
we
having.
just we try to keep up with all the other signage. That might kill us.
The Dunkin' Donuts sign is essentially a logo sign, is it not?
It's, yeah, it's this, yeah.
You can see it.
So,
kinda-
so there's continuity with the building next door
Ah,
as
yeah.
well, yeah.
Is there lighting on the existing Mount Airy sign? Not, it's a lit sign, but it actually has light shining on it?
No, because it's very hard to do it.
Okay. Wasn't sure if you had spotlights on it.
I agree with Leslie. I just don't, it doesn't fit the character of the building, the font, the channel, none of it. I mean, I understand that you've got Dunkin' Donuts over there, but Dunkin' Donuts was a new building. This is an old construction, right? I know you revamped it. Is there any way that you could even make that font the kind of sign, that type of font that the Mount Airy Inn sign is? Make it a little more historic looking?
Well,
Yeah.
just keep in mind that with this idea about moving to this house, it was nothing about my wife's idea, which was a great idea. It was nothing he started. We could have just tore it down and
Yeah, I
started all
know.
over again.
I totally got it.
So
I
now,
appreciate
we
it.
tried it for a
Kept it.
couple of years, and we strongly believe that the sign is actually organized. Because if we put a good sign up and people see, it's, it doesn't matter how much you advertise, it's all about the signage. So, after everything we've done, we don't want to be left out with the sign, you can't even see it.
Lenny, I did, when we sat down at the meeting, I did ask if we could shape it into some
Actually, we made it a little bit, you should.
historical. One thing, and I don't know if Jesse forwarded the email to you, about, your Facebook logo? Your Facebook logo for the Mount Airy Inn,
yeah.
or not Facebook, website logo?
Yeah.
And I hesitated bringing this up in the staff report because it would function as a cabinet sign, which we're not really supportive of. However, it reminded me, like, if the planning commission would somehow, the Mount Airy Inn, like, if it could be in that coloration and like I see a
That's there.
space, like, right above the peak, that you could put a illuminated sign there with the logo, if that would be better than what you're proposing.
Or like on
And
top.
what it reminds me of? It reminds me sort of like the Starbucks out at Safeway.
Yeah, it's really
And I
nice.
think that that's actually gonna bring more visibility and character to that building than the town.
You talk about the put 'em on top there, or?
Yeah, like, see, like, right above.
To
that
put it
peak.
in the
What's
arch?
the square
In the
footage?
opening?
Yeah, the square, but is there a window there? But isn't that a good idea?
You have to to be careful when we put the sign, because we still gotta deal with the ghost inside the building.
You know what?
The ghost may don't like this.
The ghost called me and said he liked it.
I'll call the ghost, okay?
Frank.
Let's email
I
him.
think what she's talking about doing is
Yeah.
taking this round and then put it into the arch
Yeah,
where you
that
have the
would-
sign now and take up that volume
I
of
don't think
space.
we don't have enough room here. We may
You don't have
enough
enough room for,
Yeah,
all of
that
Or you
we-
could do above it.
And I think that would balance it out a little bit. Like I said, we're not in favor of the sign cabinets, but this would be like a different kind of coloration. I think it would.
It have to
really
be
good.
box the sign though to do like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we can do them around, but
It
still
needs to
gotta
be
be
round.
box, because it's only way to get all that stuff.
I don't know if, I mean, in this one instance, it would, and I have a great logo on your website. Use it. It's like, it's your branding.
It's right,
Right.
it is
okay?
branding, paid money for it.
It's a locally owned restaurant, brand it, use it.
the reason this sign doesn't jump and pop now is it doesn't have the white background, it doesn't have contrast to it,
Yeah,
where
we
it's
can
located.
figure something.
Yeah.
And if it was moved slightly to some of the locations that they're suggesting, it would.
All
You would
right,
have
how
that
about
contrast.
we do that, right, let's see if it up, so we can put it up. And then I'll put some lights up, like some lights that shine to this existing sign.
Wait a minute. What'd you just say?
So put some special lights to lighten up the signage now.
Oh, you're gonna do a plaque like that?
See, technically,
And
we
not
said
a
that we've
box.
been at this before, like the existing sign. If we were to turn it down into a box sign, they would do it. Remember? You guys don't want a box sign.
Well, that's what I'm.
Nah, I don't mind to
Well, for
do
that
that, like
space.
I can have that, try to put it up.
Mhm,
But then on the bottom side,
mhm.
we want to put some, lights that will come up, down, and shoot it against.
Yeah, like,
He wants to put,
Spotlights.
he's doing this, but he also wants
Yeah.
to put spotlights on the ground that are gonna shoot up and
No, on the
illuminate.
ground, they'll be attached to the building into the sign.
Okay, but it's
Yeah.
still
I
lighting the
wish it
sign
was
under the
gooseneck
alcove.
like we
Yeah, but
did.
right now you
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah.
But that's better than,
How long would it take you, working with your sign company, to,
How long it is?
flesh out?
Like
some-
tomorrow, about 10 a.m.
Okay,
The sign is already up, did you see that?
okay,
well, I drove by. I keep
all right.
She was getting it at 6 o'clock.
So how about, we,
Are you talking about putting the round one right here, just for everybody, so we're talking on the same page? Put the round one here,
Yeah,
and
put
then
the
you
round
wanna,
one,
you
yeah.
wanna light this.
yeah, I think this one we can do something up, like something that will come into.
Now, with this, are you gonna make this lighted,
Yeah,
or are you
we
gonna
have-
do like a medallion relief type thing? Because if you ended up doing this, it's up to you, we can talk about it afterwards, but if you wanna do like a medallion relief thing, I think it would look really historic, it probably wouldn't be super expensive. You still have your lights on the front of here lighting this up, you could probably put a light here and here that shines on this. And it would just be like your crest, if you will, for the,
that'd be pretty.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay.
We're gonna be back here soon anyways, we put an addition to this and
yeah, you taking
all
it
the
all the way,
sta-
taking it all the way
and
back?
we put it in the entries behind where all the stadium used to be.
Okay.
Right,
Is that sign just coming down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay,
Well, the barber shop's going up.
all right.
Okay.
Cool,
All right,
So maybe we defer this to next month?
that's fine, I just
Work?
get you something new tomorrow.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you, thanks for doing that,
All right.
Frank.
Heather, does that work?
That works. Thank
All right.
you.
Okay. So that brings us to Firehouse Pottery.
Okay. Firehouse Pottery and Arts moved to their new location at 116 South Main Street. They are still in the downtown zone. They have submitted a sign permit application for a wall-mounted externally illuminated sign. They wish to install a wall-mounted channel letter sign measuring 20 inches in height by 175 inches wide for a total of 24.34 square feet. There will be no direct, internal illumination. You can see from the photo that it'll be by the existing gooseneck lights.
Mhm.
The frontage of the tenant space of the building is 23 linear feet. This space was formerly occupied by Retro Metro, and Firehouse Pottery has carefully designed cut that down. But the concern is, and they were carefully, they were very conscientious to make sure that what they took down and what they put back up wasn't going to leave any demarcation. So in this instance, we would ask for the commission's consideration to approve this sign. For the overall aesthetics of the building, retro metro, it was after the fire, you know, it was before our processes really changed. So we are recommending approval of the sign as shown, of 24.34 square feet.
We have Dave Regal with us tonight. Dave, anything you wanted to add, or any comments?
I think that the size is appropriate based on the other three tenants on the first floor. It all matches.
From a size and a stylistic standpoint, there's continuity across all of those signs.
So all of them are 20 inches tall?
You know, I haven't measured them.
I have
They,
not.
they appear to me to be very, very
Yeah.
similar.
I have not measured, nor did we pull the permits for all of them, but I do know that when the building, when the signage for the buildings, like the other tenants, Mr. Scranton is very particular about that, so.
Okay?
Well, it's reasonable to go ahead and just let it stay, even though it is over.
Well, it's also, if by utilizing
Last sign.
essentially the same square area,
Yeah.
there's no fading, there's no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, just one other point, and this might be one thing, the sign's there, but is the signage on the glass included in that?
As of now, we look at it for aesthetics to make sure it's not covering, the entire windows, but the window decals are not included in the square footage of the allowed signs. And I believe even in the proposed regulations, it simply stipulates that it can't cover more than 25% of the area. It's not included in the.
I just wasn't
Okay.
sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's a very good point.
Okay. All right, so it is additive, it's supplemental
Yeah.
in terms of area it's allowed. Okay,
Looks-
all right. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the signage for the Firehouse Pottery and Arts as proposed.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. Leslie seconded. Scott made the motion. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. And it passes unanimously. All right.
Welcome to a little bit more than the Main Street. Okay, we are, our third Main Street, sign, actually
Fourth.
is the St. James Thrift Shop. And their site location is 234 South Main Street, and they're also in the downtown zone. And they have submitted a sign permit application for their retail store. The applicant proposes to install an aluminum sign on the front of their building. The sign measures 26 inches in height and 40 inches wide for a total of 7.19 square feet. And the rendering shows that it will be a 48-inch roll bracket holding the proposed sign. There is no internal illumination of the proposed sign. And the frontage of the building is 68 linear feet. So their proposed signage is certainly modest. We found that the building material size and overall design for their shop is compatible with the town's vision. And so we recommend approval.
And they've removed the other sign? Or they are removing?
I don't know that for certain.
But they are removed.
Is it proposed to be removed? Can you,
I believe it is, yeah, they actually want to redo their signage. I don't know if they've removed it yet or not. Yeah, yes. This is family style.
can you go back to the picture?
We want to get rid of the flat sign that says thrift shop and also the one at the top, because then there'll be three signs there, it's a little repetitive. And the one that says thrift shop there on the middle, it's flat and it's great, but if you're driving,
Right.
you don't see it. So we'll probably remove both of those signs and have just the hanging,
Right.
and then that way you can see it from both sides of town. when you're
Is
driving by.
that roof area, is that flat or is that sloping?
It is a slope. slope, so we'll have to build,
Okay,
some anchor.
okay. All right.
Yeah, we propose that we'll take those down.
So you'll be going from 2 to 1?
We'll be going from,
Or
yeah,
3
two
to-
to, well, it'll be three. We'll put the third one up there and we'll remove the other two.
It's gone from the two that are lit to one that isn't lit.
Right.
It's a nice
Well,
ride.
actually, they're not lit now. I think they were, ultimately, when they were donated to us several years ago, I think they probably, at that point, were illuminated, but I
Okay.
couldn't tell you how to turn it on or where it's, I have no idea.
Right.
So
It's
when
not
we're all said and
functional.
done, there will just be one sign, like an arm sign.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're hopeful that we can have a parish member at the church take them down for us. If we get the approval of this one, we'll have those removed.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And were you, were you guys were planning some painting? Or are you guys still planning on some painting to
well,
the exterior of the
The
building?
process of the building being bought,
Oh, okay.
it's between the two of the gentlemen. One's
Okay.
owning, one's buying.
Okay.
So I
Right.
think it's going to be
That's what I'd
painted
heard.
at the beginning in
yeah.
the summer, I'm hoping.
Good,
Mhm.
good. We did
I'd
get,
heard that.
the.
Mr. York.
The thrift shop, little.
Town color palette.
Yeah, what is that called? The historical palette, of the historical colors. So they're gonna be picking, I think, like a soft yellow from that. So we'll be.
Well, that's what we suggested to the owners, what they go with,
this
what
was
they
true.
go with.
But
We
look
can
forward
just
to
make a
the
strong
improvements.
suggestion.
Cool.
Well, just tell
Okay.
them that was the only color.
Well, it looks nice.
Yeah, looks very
I
nice.
like
I don't have an issue with
Yeah.
it.
Looks very nice. All right. Then I move that we approve the application for St. James Thrift Shop, the new design and very attractive wrought iron with the design and building material that's been proposed.
I'll second.
And, okay, Lindy seconded.
Can we make just one addition to it based
Yes.
off of what was said, is that the other signage is coming down based on approval of this signage?
And you said it's coming down first before the new is erected?
Yeah, as long as
Okay.
that's
In there.
in there,
All right.
I'm good.
Okay, well, let's modify the motion to include that. All right? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign? It passes. Okay. So that takes us to Dollar and Party.
And we are still on Main Street. We're at 1312 South Main Street at the Food Lion Shopping Center for a new tenant, Dollar Party Store. They've submitted a sign permit application for wall-mounted illuminated signage. The applicant proposes to install wall-mounted channel letter signage measuring 22 inches in height by 144 inches wide for a total of 22 square feet. There is illumination, of the proposed sign is internally illuminated. I'm sorry for that.
So that the sign is illuminated,
It is.
will
internally-
be illuminated.
Right. The frontage of the subject building, again, is 22 linear feet, so the requested square footage is, compliant with code. And just a little historical fact, the space was formerly occupied by Abbott's Coors.
Okay.
It's your typical channel set letters, that is seen on that shopping center. Staff, felt that it was compatible and has recommended approval. And the different coloring of the party is consistent with their logo. Whenever we see multicolored, we
Yeah.
look into it.
Heather, I meant to get out there and to take a look at all of the presentation of the signage in the shopping center, but I just didn't get around to it.
If you recall, on
So-
to the right of it, it's Advanced Auto Parts, which is your red, white, and
Yeah.
black.
But what would be helpful to us, and I remember we did it, we were looking at signage for Twin Arch, was to show us the context
Like the whole.
of it,
Well,
right?
is that it up
Yeah.
towards the left?
Just can't see it very well.
You can't
Just
see
can't
it.
see it.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just my contacts, sorry.
No, you're good. Or it's all our contacts.
Okay.
Because it's really kind of a missing to how that fits into the whole shopping center.
You can kind of make out Ace.
I drove right by this evening, but I was too busy driving.
Can you click on it?
I don't know.
Or maybe the lights.
So are each of the other signs, are they all logos? Are they their respective logos? As I recall, they are.
It's, it's not like, the,
Okay.
like the Mount Airy Shopping Center
Yeah.
is, I didn't know you were coming back, I could've moved in.
He's our tech consultant. We'd be lost without him.
Keep talking.
I guess if it matches what's in the shopping center, then it
Right.
makes sense. It's just,
What about the other signs? Is there illumination with the other signs?
Yeah, they're all, they're all, channel lit and internally
Okay.
Yeah.
illuminated. Like Mr.
Rest of them
Tire on the,
Yeah, we're right.
eastern end of
at
the
least it's
building
consistently
has
not
the
good.
Mr. Tire logo. And then, you have your advanced
Oh, maybe
auto
the color of
parts,
the
which kind of wraps
It
around.
matches
the
It's
color of the
also on the east and the south
shopping
side of
center,
the
not on the
building.
street.
Okay.
First of all, it's like,
Um, And then you have like barber, you have your, barber and nails.
sorry.
Yeah, you can't, this doesn't have very
Stockings.
well on it.
All right, so what you're telling us is there's continuity
There's
in terms of
continuity.
style, illumination,
Yeah,
size, everything. It's all proportional.
and their channel set on the
Okay.
race, the
All right.
raceway.
The chair would entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we.
Be brave.
Yeah, well, it's not that it's like that. You say I don't love it, but, okay. So I would make a motion that we accept the staff recommendation of approval of the sign permit application with design and building material proposed.
I'll second it. All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign? All right, and it's unanimous. All right, very good. Did we have anyone from this store, this business here tonight?
I don't believe
No.
they're here, Annalise did reach out.
Okay,
confident.
all right.
So we have one more on, Main Street, and this location should look very familiar to everyone. This,
This is when pigs
is
fly.
an opportunity for, to benefit all
This
of
is a
our
good idea.
our downtown. Mr. Bill Chapman is the property owner of, 104 South Main Street. And you probably recognize this sign location of the When Pigs Fly. And as we all know, that store is no longer in business. And his current tenant, Superfoods, wanted to see if we could utilize this space, which she could be rightfully, allowed to advertise her business, but to see if Mr. Chapman would consider having a sign that would just focus on the entire downtown. And Melissa has been instrumental in, helping achieve a satisfactory design that would reflect, the Main Street. We do have Mr. Swanson from MAMSA here to talk a little bit more about it, if there are questions. But we did recommend approval of this. Basically, highlights our historical downtown area, encourages everyone to make a difference and shop local.
Is that upstairs space rented now?
I believe that they are using it, for the, like
Storage,
storage.
superfood? Okay.
And I believe that it's kind of like a communal space
Okay,
perhaps.
so
but-
what's the likelihood that this sign could remain in place, indefinitely, or at least an extended period of time, and so the benefit would continue to be there long term?
Right. And of course, Mr. Chapman owns, retains ownership of the sign, and if there is a tenant that is going to come in there that wants to use
Mhm.
it, he certainly retains the right to come back. But, I think for now, instead of having a business that no longer exists, to utilize that space for something that highlights our downtown, as a historical area, is charming.
Agree.
Okay, very nice.
Yes, ma'am.
Question. Rendering that's shown here does not show the store open? I don't have the sign.
That's
think
because this is a Google Maps view.
the color scheme's similar though, right?
Yes, you can, is that pre-superfoods?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pre-superfoods, and
Yeah, superfoods, we had that,
Green.
months ago, yeah, it's like green and yellow and, yeah.
There's a,
They have signage, the coffee house sign there, is that,
Yeah, they have a,
can't remember.
yeah.
is the background of this sign green to match the awnings, or is it
It-
more like maroon?
What's being proposed now is that,
Yes,
and that's
okay.
the update that
Okay.
you sent out.
Okay.
There
Oh,
was
that's
one-
not-
color
one-
printed, so I
Okay.
didn't see the difference.
I just assumed it was what I had in the packet.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we forwarded
I do too.
to everyone,
Yeah.
Bill.
Okay.
There was some last minute opinions that, changed
The colors are a little different, as you can see. One of our sign
That's
companies
a true
on
word.
Main Street helped us, and her printer's a lot better than the ones that we have. So it's a rich, kind of a dark maroon color, and a cream. And,
This was in the green.
the awnings are green, although
That's very complimentary.
the sold first, I believe, is a maroon awning.
Dick, what's Mams's preference, or do you have one in?
They're sold.
Okay. Okay.
Can you, back to what you said about the sold first awning? Can you go back to the picture? Is that the awning underneath is supposed to be now maroon?
No, that's staying green.
That's a superfoods store.
Where's the sold
It's-
first awning?
It's actually next to the museum. You cannot see it in the picture.
It's in the wider green awning,
Going by.
actually downstairs.
It's beyond, it's
Yeah.
north of. The other side is a Yeah, okay.
Oh, did they move? Oh, okay. Oh, did they move into the former train station? The model train? Okay.
The, den of, antiquity.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I got you. All right. Any other questions? All right. Then I'll, since staff is recommending approval and MAMSA also agrees with it and likes it, I'll move that we approve the sign permit location for the shop local sign replacement with the design and building materials that have been proposed. And this is the final design, Melissa?
That, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Dick, what's the approximate timing of this?
Pardon?
What's the timing of this? When might this be in place?
I don't know.
It's
That's
up
up
to,
Mr.
Mr.
Chapman.
Chapman.
Okay. All right. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Way to go, Jennifer. All right. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. And it passes.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, that takes us to Carroll and Frederick County Planners.
Hello.
What did you hand out to us, Andrea?
This is our annual report, 2012 annual report, so it's everything, it captures the whole county from last year. And there are two things that we need you to do with this. I can tell you the exact pages. It's, Mount Airy is mentioned on pages 4 and 5. So it talks about like the Twin Arch Business Park, which is the very last line on page 4 in this table. And then the map shows number 21, and that's what's associated with that part of the table. We also have, if you turn the page on page 6, there is a line item also for Mount Airy. And that's at pretty much almost at the bottom.
Andrea, on page 4,
Yes.
in that bottom line where it references Lot 8, Section 4, Twin Arch Business Park, light assembly, 2 acres. Which location is this? This is Twin Arch Business Park. Skyview?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next lot down.
Okay.
And so, right there, on the map, number 21 goes with that as well.
Okay. It's over here.
Um,
Yep.
Page number 6 talks about UNOs from last year. Talks about, so there were 53 residential, 64 residential improvements, 5 commercial industrial, 17 commercial industrial improvements. This is information that we got from the town, but, and then the very last is on page 32. And this is just on this bottom section right here. It talks about one of the ordinances that went through last year. So those were the 3 specific areas that we got information from the town. So if you can review this information, next month I'm going to come before you and ask the Planning Commission to accept the information. And also if it can be done, administratively, but a letter has to go from the Planning Commission to Maryland Department of Planning,
Okay.
saying that the Planning Commission does approve this, the annual report, or the Mount Airy section. It's going to go as an appendix. All of the planning commissions in the county are going to go as an appendix to the final document. So that will be in May. Also wanted to update you on the water and sewer master plan. I know you all are very excited to hear. However, we got comments back from the state, and I am currently addressing it. They had a lot of comments about our draft, not necessarily regarding Mount Airy. They actually, I reached out to Barney and asked, how far along in the process are you guys from taking away the consent agreement or lifting the consent agreement? Because one of the things that MDE was saying was that, you can't do this because Mount Airy, what we were suggesting, because Mount Airy is in a under a consent agreement. Said yes, but I've been in the planning commission meetings and we've talked about the fact that, the paperwork is pretty much the last step that we have to do. So I forwarded that information because the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand sometimes in big departments. So I forwarded that information to the state. And so I'm just moving forward with all the comments. But that was the only thing that addressed Mount Airy specifically. So I'm trying to do everything.
Good.
And once those comments are addressed, it'll still come back to this body, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, because we did not, we haven't gone to the county planning commission or anything. Last time when we submitted our draft, we did it, we got all of the planning commission's input. We then went to our planning commission, went to the board of commissioners, and then turned it into the state. Well, then the state had issue. So what we're doing first is we're sending it to the state first and saying, are we on the right path that you wanted us to be on? And then we'll come back to the towns. I've worked hard with the staff at all of the towns, so pretty much I'm hoping that this is consistent with what it is that everyone wants.
From a county planning perspective, from Carroll County perspective, what do you see as the opportunities and the priorities for greater Mount Airy area?
As far as water and sewer, or as far as?
In general, planning in general over, say, the next 2 to 5 years, the next 8 to 10?
It's actually, Mount Airy, I think, is unique for the fact that we haven't had much of a hand in doing your master plan. So as far as what the county is planning for Mount Airy, it's based on what your master plan is.
Good.
To my knowledge.
We're pushing to get it done.
Yeah. So, is there any other questions I can answer for anybody?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
So you'll be back next month, and you need
Yeah,
a
I will
approval
be
from
sending
us.
Heather pretty much like a draft
Okay.
letter, or the template that the state has. Whether or not you all just want to say you approve the information and then it can be done administratively, if everybody wants to sign it, whatever it is that you want, it just has to be done at the May meeting.
Okay. All right.
Bill?
Yes.
If there are changes, Andrea, should we get those to you before May 20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we can, to keep, it has to be to the state July 1st. So that means that it has to go, this would be a late May meeting, has to go before our planning commission in June. And it's not an approval, it is an acceptance, pretty much. I don't think that anybody, I'm sorry, it's an approval, not an adoption. So, yeah, it's that everyone is okay with it, but it doesn't have to be formally adopted. So, but it has to be, the information has to be okay at the May meeting to formally do a letter.
Our May meeting will be held on May 20th due to the Memorial Day holiday, so if commission members could get comments by the 13th, and I can forward them to Andrea, would that be
Absolutely.
okay? Or
Mhm.
Bill, how?
Well, I was going to say, let's make it reciprocal. Let's have our commission members each take an individual view and forward their comments. Let's also hear town staff feedback as well.
And this information, I'm just going to reiterate the fact that this was given to us by the staff, so, the information that's in there, so,
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
We have a representative for, is Tim here? Don't see Tim. Tim's not.
I know
Okay.
they've been pretty busy today.
Yep.
But I'll reach out.
Okay.
Nothing else for an update.
On this,
By May 20th.
May 20th.
Yeah, by like the 13th.
Yeah, let's do it by the 13th, yeah. Okay. It's a homework assignment. All right. Okay. So that brings us to the centerpiece of our meeting tonight. That's to continue a discussion on the draft water allocation ordinance. Okay. Is it of value to, Tom, maybe to summarize where we are at this point? We stepped basically through the first 17 or so pages. We've given some feedback and
Here I have us leaving off, probably that begins the most critical.
Are you going to come sit with us?
come on up.
There's a space for you.
Come on up.
Plenty of spaces.
So where I have us, having left off the last time, was beginning to address what in my view is probably the most critical aspect of this set of ordinance changes. That is on page 18 of 23, specifically the proposed new section 109-19.4C, and that is addressing the different allocation categories that might well be the subject of dividing available yield, basically. And as we mentioned the last time, this is really a larger list than you all may want to recommend. These are more a list of suggestions. There may be areas to combine some of these. I do have the note that the number 10, commercial new demand outside of a priority area, is duplicative of one earlier mentioned. But so at any rate, that's kind of where I think things were left off, and probably where the discussion needs to begin.
If I recall, we were toying with the idea of having more generic statement in here and then on an annual basis up with the category.
Annual or biennial?
Biannual.
We'd even talked about every 24 months as opposed to.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
not having the categories in the ordinance itself, but have some statement that said we would create the categories or discuss the categories or.
And maybe
What have
even
you.
have a parking lot. I mean, there may be situations where it makes sense to call in consideration some of these particulars. But I think the heart of the ordinance is separate and independent of quantification and, allocation quantities and so forth.
Right, I guess the one concern I might raise without having looked at in depth about having something very generic and then sort of making up the categories every year or every other year, whichever we do. My concern would be that without spelling out at least the categories, what I'll call the allocation categories in the ordinance itself, do you get closer to what I think some had some reticence about, and that is, just sort of saying, we'll do it in accordance with the master plan, which isn't really helpful, to the town engineer member who's got to come up with a report every 2 years or year, whatever we're going to do. And number two, of course, my concern would be some challenge to the arbitrariness and capriciousness of sort of making the categories up as we go along. I can appreciate, and as I've indicated here, that you may not want to put, and you probably don't want to put percentages in the ordinance, because then every time you adjust, you've got to change the ordinance. So kind of envisioning that maybe the ordinance would simply list the categories and then through resolution after the town engineer's report, maybe with some adjustment, maybe just approving the town engineer's report, there would be the percentages or however you would want to allocate it.
I mean, I know we had some discussion of, I think it might have been Tony who mentioned, we really want to be able to allocate based on our priorities, which is, starting with downtown and Main Street. And so I don't know if we can break it down like that and then have a more generic extra. I mean, one of the things that I think is maybe concerning about having all these categories is, does that mean there's an expectation, like a use outside of a priority area? Do we really want to put that in there when we want to first allocate 2 priority areas? So to give so many options seems to possibly create expectations that we don't necessarily want to create.
On the same lines, what would be the, maybe you're saying also, what would be the harm legally, maybe, if we assign a 0% to any of these categories on it?
Right, on an ongoing basis, yeah.
On
I
an
mean,
ongoing basis, but we're saying that's up for review.
Every
with
2
whatever
years.
frequency
Right.
But
that we choose.
say you're in the first year and you say, okay, I want 0% for most of these, and maybe 2 of them I'm going to assign categories or percentages to.
But it
Is that causing any sort of legal issue?
No, I don't think so. I think that that's kind of the flexibility that you would want to build into it. As an example here, and I might have used this the last time, if you have a host of public improvements in year 5, you may want to, in your allocation, first years, well before that's to come online, allocate 0. But in year 3, as you build up, maybe start, peeling off allocation for it in anticipation of those improvements. That's just by way of example. But yeah, it could well be that the allocation in a given period is 0 to some or all of these categories, maybe.
Is there a clause in here in the instance that we need to do any type of emergency adjustment or something like that? Say something comes down the pipe and all of a sudden we need to reallocate.
Okay.
Yeah, there is.
There are some.
That's here.
That's on page 19, I think.
Well, I saw 4 emergency claims.
If you look on page 19 under letter D.
Right.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about are 2 different things, really. Emergency claims is listed on page 18,
Right.
is really a category unto itself, that, let's say, from year to year, you may want to have some small allocation for it in case you get a well failure or a septic failure or something along those lines, and you get, as a result and in response, an application for, connecting to town service. What the adjustments on page 19 are really referring to is adjustments that you might make midstream. Let's say we opt for a 2-year interval between resolutions. After year one, this adjustment with some limitations, and this comes from another ordinance, I believe it's Frederick City, would allow you in midstream with certain limitations to make adjustments to
Okay.
reflect exactly the kind of thing you're talking about.
Would this, Tom, encompass something along the lines, say, Harrison Legier finally comes down the pipe where we have a new water source, that we could, out of cycle, make adjustments based on allocation? Because that's a new criteria, new volume coming in?
Well, but this adjustment is to the allocation of the total available yield.
But the yield's
As-
changed.
But it's percentage, right?
But because, right, it's by, you would allocate by percentage, let's say. Using Harrison Lashir as an example, remember that when the town engineer, as currently drafted, prepares a report and says, look, this is the amount of available yield, the town engineer is going to, in the first instance, by reporting the planning commission what there is to allocate, going to be reporting the new supply from Harrison Lashir. This adjustment is really talking about the percentages of allocation between the categories, which really isn't affected necessarily by Harrison Lashir or whatever additional new supply you might have.
That could be reset once a year.
Yeah, that's how it's
Because of the-
currently written. Again, I think it's trying to balance sort of having too many fluctuations between resolutions, and on the other hand, having the flexibility to adjust to new information.
Okay.
But I guess what I would need to know is in terms of the categories under C, are there some we want to eliminate, or do we want all of these, with the understanding that the allocation might be zero to some of these in certain times? Do we need all of these? Do we want to eliminate some of these, I guess?
Well, my comment would be for the priority areas, I wouldn't necessarily try and divide it down even further. There is a point of diminishing returns. You
Right,
get into
right.
micromanagement, and as Tom
Right.
pointed out, or whoever wrote this, you'd have to do a code change every time. So it
Yeah.
makes sense to go root things, and I think being able to be flexible enough to change the percentage out of cycle should be sufficient.
You can only change it once according to this.
As written.
Once per
As
year,
written,
or as it's currently written.
Right, but
So
if
twice as
there's an instance, and that's what I was asking, is that out of cycle, if we do our change,
Yeah.
maybe I'll clarify this with Tom. If we do our change and we say, oh, the fluctuation right now, we were off, we miscalculated, we need to move things around to rebalance our assets, so we do that. Then some new source comes in, Harrison Legier, or I'll go the reverse, we don't have a source, we actually lose water, where we need to make a change to say, oh my gosh, all these, things we thought about before based on X, now we're at Y, and we need to change. Does that allow this body to then say, well, now with this new information, because it's a special situation, we can readjust again? We didn't prompt it, it was prompted by capacity.
Yeah, I mean, you could adjust as currently written once in between whatever your interval's gonna say, let's say it's 2 years. So you could adjust once in that 2-year time frame. Remember, too, there are also other provisions here that condition water allocations, specific properties on, there not being the kind of reduction in, allocation to us, or appropriation, I should say, amounts by the MDE. If they were to reduce that, or if one of our wells were to fail, or something like that, you'll see in here conditions.
Right, right.
But in the instance, I think, I didn't get the answer to the question I wanted, is that if we execute a change out of cycle, so we've done it the one time, in 2 years, we do it in a year, and we say, okay, we're gonna rebalance because it wasn't right. And then, after that year, so we're a year plus a couple months or whatever, something dramatic happens, drought, pipe bursts, and we have to replace the whole pipeline, or do something where we need to change these numbers, or a new source comes in and we go, oh, now we have excess, well, let's figure out how it really can be all these projects we threw off the balance.
Right.
Can we at that time, because it is not this body prompting the change, it's the external environment prompting the change?
The answer is not as currently written. However, remember that just because you have apportioned certain percentages of available yield to these categories, there's still another step that's got to go. There's got to be actual allocation of water, i.e. through a permit, to a particular project. And so I think the answer to your problem occurs later. The fix is, as the conditions indicate, you know, the parties who are seeking water and sewer permits at this time don't get them because, you know, one of the
Right.
conditions.
As the other criteria is kicked in, that's
Exactly.
automatically.
Yeah.
Back to what Scott was saying, use the example of adding, I think what you're referring to, we don't have enough. We have a new source. We may want to allocate that new source a different way than what we previously came up with or decided. So I think the question is, can you add another provision in here? That's what everybody agrees to. Another provision that allows us to do that. Under, I don't know what kind of condition that, how you want to word that exactly, but it's a condition where
I think it's I don't know,
unplanned event.
excess, yeah, it's an unplanned thing, and that's all I was trying to get at, Tom, is that if
Well-
there's something that happens outside of this body's decision, oh, we just want to change because we want to change.
Yeah, we can be responsive to it.
Right, we need to have that tool in our arsenal, and maybe that needs some type of check and balance to it, just like everything else, but I'm just saying to have the flexibility, if something happens, we need to be able to do something, maybe it's getting by with the engineer and, you know, whatever.
Putting some sort of wording that says if conditions change as outside of planning's, well, if current conditions change, or yes, you know, that as a result, we can make an adjustment. Something locked, because locked in just once, you know, once every
Right.
2 years is also a little
That's not
scary
flexible
because
enough. Yeah.
I like the idea of it's
two
just-
droughts road back to back or something like that.
Yeah, I like the idea the body has the power in which, once a year, you can make an adjustment out of cycle. Cool, then you don't have I wanna change it to this day, I wanna change it to that day, and then we deal with a whole bunch of headaches. But at the same time, if there's that unforeseen incident of either excess or in excess of, then we can adjust to it and go, oh my gosh, now we have to deal with this, versus being tied and going, well, we already made our change.
Right,
so
and
we have
locked
to
into
wait a year."
something.
I also like the idea of having these allocation categories mentioned in the ordinance where we see fit to actually utilize them for a 2-year period or not. I think it requires us to be responsible and do a very thorough planning review and projection.
But also specifically saying you can have 0% allocated to it.
Yes,
So
well,
that-
exactly. We may feel it's not appropriate.
Right.
It's just at that point.
That spelled out clearly that, oh,
Yeah.
by the way, you know, you can have 0%, so that, again, that there is no expectation.
But let's task ourselves to have them here, and so we go through the exercise. We may not need them, but I think they should be mentioned. Okay,
You know, we have these categories that are outside the priority area, non-mixed residential, mixed use, new demand. We don't have the same categories in the priority.
Well, that's because I think that the vision is, correct me if I'm wrong, that maybe there's a good model for this, I'm not sure. That the planning commission would sort of approve a map if it defines what those priority areas are, and that too might adjust every 2 years or that might encompass more than, you know, I would assume right now, the downtown zone would be the focus of that, but it might not always be. And so the priority areas, I guess, are what the planning commission defines it to be, which might be commercial, might be residential, might be both. I think that's kind of how I thought was the model for this.
Yeah, we weren't certain if we could actually designate a priority allocation area. You know, we weren't, until, you know, talking through that. So the idea was.
And now we're sure that we can? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I wouldn't say we're sure, there's not a lot of law
Okay.
that this is a little bit cutting edge in terms of what you're doing.
Right. Well, I just want to make sure that if we can do it, then we definitely need to make sure it's here. But if we can't do it, then we need to add in the priority categories. Because here, in a way, with our limited water, even with Harrison last year, even if that comes on, which I don't think we even expect in the next 2 years, it doesn't seem to me we're going to have water for non-priority areas. So I'm just kind of a little confused about sort of the emphasis on the non-priority areas and without
Well,
our,
again, this ordinance is, you know, when we look at this, we're thinking of after our retirement. You know,
I know, but it's gonna be looked at least, initially it was gonna be looked at every year. And the only reason that we shifted that was we thought it could become burdensome, actually.
Right.
Especially in the pace
Right.
that we sometimes move.
Right.
So in terms of an every 2-year
Right, right.
thing,
Yeah, some of these
Anyway.
categories, I mean, may never
just
be
an
touched.
observation.
Okay, Andrea, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody about how the county water and sewer master plan goes for the towns. We do have specific categories, which are current existing, and these are places that are hooked up right now. We do have a priority category, also have a future category, and we have something called a +10 category, which is something that we see that the town would eventually want to serve, but it's not right now. Our priority is 0 to 6 years. And then 7 to 10 is our priority. I'm sorry, our future, anything, and then past that, it's the +10. The town, when we discussed this, the properties that we put into the priority category were ones that had commercial industrial zoning or a special exemption. I believe those are the ones that we did based on where it seemed like your master plan is going. So I just wanted to throw that out there in the ways of talking. We have very similar language that we use, and the water and sewer plan is done every 3 years. So
Okay.
if you guys are talking about doing it every 2 years, we also do it every 3. So it's just to remind you of that's what's going on too.
All right, good. Roxanne, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I know I have a question. I guess it's a question towards Tom. Are there specific procedures to determine, like, the allocations and the priorities? And who,
In this proposed ordinance?
no, in general, at all? I mean, who is going to determine what determines the allocation and who or what determines the priorities?
Yeah, to back up, as indicated in the ordinance as currently drafted, and it's just a draft at this point. Let me back up and say, part of the problem with the existing ordinance is that none of that's spelled out. So what this contemplates is that on some interval, it currently says annually, but I think we're probably all in agreement that's too often. Well, let me even back up further. Once we're out of the consent order, what this calls for is that the town council would adopt a method of calculating what the available yield would be. Then the town engineer would be charged with utilizing that method and either every other year or every 3 years, preparing a report that says, look, this is the available yield, this is what can be allocated. And then furthermore, to go beyond that and take probably whatever existing resolution exists as of the time he's doing that report from this body and actually go ahead and allocate it, so that we're working off something more than just a lump sum. What this ordinance says is that the town engineer would make that calculation and take into account any new sources that have been developed in the interim, system capacity, you know, a host of other things that are spelled out here that would go toward reducing the, what's available, including what's already being allocated. Pipeline as well. So that when the report from the town engineer comes out and says, okay, this is the available yield, the idea is that it's a net number already. You know, so at that point in time, what this contemplates is that the town council would approve the engineer's report. And at that point in time, the report would come to this body to do its work, at least initially, and set how these allocations are going to be made to these various categories. At that point in time, and from there, of course, you would have for individual projects, individual properties, an application process for what we're calling a water and sewer allocation permit. And with respect to new developments or projects to which the site plan process would apply, that would occur at the concept plan stage, because that's also when the APFO review is undertaken. You know, if it's a subdivision, it would be at concept plan, whether it's a minor or a major subdivision. And then, of course, you may have individual property owners who are newly annexed. You know, it's a house or something. They're looking for an allocation permit. Or it's an existing property within town and their well has failed. They would just go ahead and apply at any time. But in all events, that's kind of in rough terms the process that's laid out in the current draft.
All right, good.
When you went through the process, what was discussed at council meetings was another step, and that was that when the town engineer comes up and he submits his report and gives a number, and currently the number is being kicked around for example, 60,000 gallons per day. And the thought pattern was that, well, to be conservative, we may not want to release all 60,000 gallons out there to be distributed in whatever fashion that was agreed to. It was thrown out something like, well, why don't we do 20,000, 20,000, 20,000 over a 3-year period? Specifically, I don't see that.
That's a good point.
And there should be some mechanism, and I assume it would be the town council, that would say of the total availability water, the town council would approve the town engineer's report and then determine the amount that will be released for the planning commission to then.
Allocate.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Good point. Roxanne?
Okay, my follow-up then is, okay, so when it comes to the, what vehicle are you going to use to make those determinations? I mean, are you going to go on the community needs assessment? How are you going to justify your priorities and your percentages? How's that going to be justified?
Again, just as currently written, the draft contemplates, number one, that the planning commission would come up with a map essentially and list and define what priority areas are. And then, obviously, that defines that area or what those priorities are. Furthermore, as currently written, there is a separate category available to the Planning Commission for allocation to address community needs assessment issues and things of that sort. I'm drawing a blank as to what we're calling that. I think we're calling it special projects under this current draft. So
it's the whole context of the master plan, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with the priority areas, we really are linked to the master plan.
Yes.
As somebody do have a little bit of surplus, who gets the first application?
Well, within each, of course, you'd have an allocation of whatever's available among the various categories, and then within each category, it's, as currently drafted, It's the first in time, whoever is first within that category to, I think, file an application for a water allocation permit or a sewer allocation
So
permit.
assuming an application is filed, that the water is not available, is the application will be held off when the water is available, the application be approved, or we have to raise it to the finish line to get it first?
No, I think that we did discuss that the last time, and one of the things we're discussing is having a waiting list. If somebody, there may be many reasons that an application is declined, but let's say that it's declined only because there's not available water, that's the sole reason. I think what we're discussing is having some kind of waiting list at that point in time, so you get a sort of a approval more or less condition upon,
Right.
availability, shall we say.
So basically, you get put on the list based on when you apply.
Or actually, the list would begin to formulate based on when you're approved, but when you are up for consideration for approval would itself depend on when you applied.
Now, let's assume you have a property that's on the community promotion, and you allow that thing, that right now, it used to be 2,500 gallons a day, now it changed to what, to 1,000?
A high water user is still 2,500 gallons a day.
That's it. So let's say you have a property like this, they're probably gonna lose their right, or their property is.
You talking about for redevelopment, Frank?
What I'm saying is, let's say we have a property that's community promotion, and we are allowed to use 2,500 gallons of water. It's not like we're gonna lose it.
No, it's already
zoned that way.
permitted.
If you already
If
have.
it's already done that way, you always
Yeah.
have that.
You already have the
And we're
permit.
not, we're
Have
not
to be permit.
talking here about, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, we're not talking about changing the numbers for the properties that have already been
Oh, no.
something for consumption. We're just talking about the allocation of available resources to people that are asking for it.
For new projects.
Has to be permitted, though.
Now,
Right.
Barney, can you explain how that would impact a business, like a property, that's zoned community commercial that wants to expand, have a change of use,
Right, well,
that isn't
it's a
using
good question because you have
2,500?
under item 1 priority areas, you have a note on downtown revitalization or, a revitalization project. If somebody wants to, say they're using 1,000 gallons a day right now, they're expanding their business to, bring in a little more office or something, they're going up to 1,500 gallons a day. I don't think you want to be in a position where you're stopping an existing business from growing. That's a good thing. You don't want to stop that. So does that get, and we keep a tracking report. Heather does a great job keeping a tracking report for that kind of expansion. Where would that fall in under here? Is that part of the priority area?
One of the notes that I had from the last time was that we need to address redevelopment and revitalization. The answer is I don't know. I need you all to tell me that.
Because that can be a significant number with a lot of businesses revitalizing. That those numbers do add up.
I think one of the important things you want to be very careful not to violate the property right owners. Because as you know, when we buy this property, we know we like to use the 25 gallon or whatever it is. And the bank give us the finance based on that. Then he can all of a sudden come to the town and say, oh, now you don't have the water, you only have 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah, we're not talking about taking water away.
But
No.
you know, look at the history we've been through.
I think also,
It's a new
Frank,
day.
if I'm not mistaken, as far as water consumption goes, just for the allocation of new, what we're talking about now, you can use as much water as you want, you pay for it. Anybody can do that today. So if you want to suck down 1 million gallons and it's available for you to do it,
Because the water in my head is more expensive than gas. I'd rather use
Understand.
natural gas.
but I'm just saying,
Well-
we're
Yeah, I
not,
know.
this body is not limited.
It's a more precious
I'm
commodity.
only
Well, the
cautioning,
future water
because
policy,
anytime
not
you
the
put something up, you
Yeah.
want to avoid the town getting sued for no reason, I think you need to be very cautious on not to violate the people, property rights. Same thing for residential or anything. Everybody,
Yep.
we all have a property rights from residential to commercial. the next thing you want to go to the next and say, oh, now you can do this, and when they can do this one, it allows us to do it.
This ordinance, the way it's written, does not go backwards. The people who have already got connections and allocation, permits and all those things, this does not affect this.
Well, let me give you an example. When the fire company building it, we wanted to put a 6-ton. We went through the process a little bit, not too much. But we backed off right away because the one, it was, we need to have schools. We said, okay, maybe we do over 55, we don't have to have schools. But then the second one was, we don't have enough water. That's the kind of thing I think you have to watch out. So what are you doing next? It's like he said, we allow the use of next and whatever we want to do. Maybe I'll bring it the plan so that we test the process.
Sure you will.
Okay, how about we step through even page by page if there are other comments? I'm sure everyone is taking a look at this. Questions you have for Tom or clarifications that,
I will need
Let's
some
spell out.
suggestions on how to deal with that, though.
I'm still thinking that through.
Well, I think one of the suggestions is either you create another category or you include it in the priority
Yeah.
areas category,
Include it.
as
Yeah.
part of the definition.
Like any existing business that wishes to
Expand.
expand
Mhm.
That,
True.
or, yeah, I think that
just have it as another category.
and then it's first in time, including, yeah, I think that's probably.
That's okay if you know any more restaurants.
That would fit.
Yeah, I think you probably need to set some parameters for it, though. You're
Okay.
using 2,000 gallons a day, you're not going to go up to 10. I mean,
Yeah.
like some type of, I don't know how you want to do it, but,
Well, you're only going to be able to build so much on your property within the zoning criteria.
well, and then the other question is it priority within a priority area, or is it just its own separate priority? Do you know what I mean?
You're making me rethink the priority area.
I know. I like to make things difficult for you, Heather, sorry.
No, I think that the intent of this is to ensure that, we do allow water for, revitalization. And should we have a category for?
Well, is that the same as expansion, I guess, would be my question then. To me, revitalization is more like revitalizing the bank and existing, or what, or the Mount Airy Inn, but not necessarily Century Ford expanding
Yeah,
their
this is
building.
expansion of existing business.
Yeah.
No matter where it is, it would be a priority.
If it's revitalization,
Yeah.
as opposed to just
Or
expansion. Well, they're different, that's what I'm trying to,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, but now I'm wondering, Frank was talking about, he needs to have insurance that there's water to take him up to his 2,500 gallons per day. And what he said.
But he's already been allocated that, right?
Right.
Right.
Barney, explain to me, is that already accounted for?
Is there a particular property we're talking about?
Should be.
Or
I'm
just
talking
any?
about in general.
Oh, well, maybe he hasn't been allocated that.
Well, just for clarification, the 2,500 is not an entitlement.
Yeah.
You're not entitled to 2,500 for every lot. If you were, then
Okay,
we would not have enough water for it, regardless of what we do.
okay, so that's where I'm getting a little.
Right. 2,500 is just a cutoff for a high water user, which is something that we've used for redevelopment projects, that if you're going to exceed that, then we don't necessarily have water today, and that's what we're trying to correct now. That's been our cutoff, but we didn't want to penalize somebody who wasn't going to become a high water user and wants to expand their business. So we've been allowing that, basically digging into our 12% reserve. So instead of digging into our 12% reserve, we probably should have a category for redevelopment and revitalization.
That's
If you-
sounds
if you put
like-
it- If you put it in the priority area projects, some priority area projects might use up that category, then you won't have anything for redevelopment. So I think it needs to be a separate category.
Makes sense. Anything else on page 19 or page 20?
I have a couple small editorial things.
Go ahead.
On, most of this we already talked about, but under B, I just want to clarify that where you reference an
Are you at the
initial.
bottom of 19?
I'm sorry, the bottom of 19, under B.
Okay.
Bottom of page 19B, where you reference a site plan, initial site plan, you're really talking about the concept plan? Based on what we have discussed previously, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
okay. All right. Then page 20. There's
The first,
the filing date.
the very first, underlined section, application shall be on a form provided and shall be submitted along with a water allocation permit fee of,
Yeah, I don't know.
when the,
Is there a precedent at all for that?
some places are doing like per EU, like, you know, a flat fee per EU. Others are like requiring that the connection fees are paid up front. Our connection fees for our water, and sanitary sewer permits are a total of $18,400.
It's
And
up front, isn't it?
And, well, before they get their permit.
Okay.
I didn't know, because I thought about this, is there a fee that should be used towards their payment, you know, like their water connection permit? Or are we charging like a administrative fee? I don't, Frank's thinking zero. I don't-
You're saying administrative fee? That's kind of how I intended this. If-
Okay, because some of them are actually saying, you know, you put up
Yeah.
some of your EDUs, and I don't know. I mean, I would hate.
So is this an additional fee?
It's a fee for the purposes of processing the application, administrative fee, for the time spent processing the application.
And are we talking about a modest, reasonable amount? I mean, something that's on a different scale from the 18,000?
Oh,
I think anything below.
much
18,000.
lower than that, I would think.
I would hope so.
That's why
I would hope so.
Yes.
You already have a fee for 1,500 plus whatever fee you accrue anyway, so what difference? Somebody comes here for a concept and you put up 1,500 plus whatever fees you already accrue. So you already have a now leave the fees. So to me, it seems a kind of bizarre. Plus, when you have a hookup fee of 18,000, I never understood why.
Bless you.
Let's say you have a 2,000 square feet building. You pay $18,000 for the fees. If we turn that 2,000 into 10 units, we have to pay an addition $4,900 for each unit, even if the unit is 100 square feet.
I know.
That to me is totally,
It's
it's insane. If you take an office, 1,000 square feet, divide into 10
I
offices,
know. I
you
know.
have to pay $4,900.
That's ridiculous.
I know. I know. And I'm
So
sorry
why don't
that
we
it's
fix
not
the
good.
system? If you want a fee for that, maybe you should not charge the fee. You
Well,
only
and
charge
that's-
based on the order.
Well, that's
Usage.
what, yeah.
I don't mean to throw that at you, but it was on my mind for long as
I felt that. I know that that's.
We changed our plans.
I know.
We had a full office.
I think there needs to be
You
some
guys want
discussion on it.
$24,000.
Yeah.
We thought for any bedrooms.
Okay,
Bedrooms on the lobby. We got at the full office.
I think that
The
goes,
council sets the fees, so.
Yeah.
Council sets the fee?
Council needs to talk.
To justice, because as they're saying, council justice,
Yeah.
if you'd like to write something up, I'd be more than happy to read through it.
Oh,
And we
well,
can talk at it at the council level.
Ask them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay,
Blank for now.
Okay,
All right.
just making it that it's administrative fee.
And
Yes.
related to that, you also addressed the fact that you have additional fees suggested on page 21. So you have an administrative fee to put in the application, and then the question is, you also have a fee if it's approved.
Right, and that's a question mark.
Right, that's a question mark, so you gotta kind of think of both items together.
Are we, and I guess, and it's just a question, I mean, there's no, are we requiring them to purchase pay for their water allocation permit at the time that their permit is approved?
Isn't that part of the app?
$2,400?
That's a connection fee. Is that different than a permit fee?
It's the connection permit fee. Or.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't lump those two together.
Like on page 21, I mean, when they receive an allocation,
That's different than a permit application fee.
I understand.
Yeah, I would keep them
understand,
separate.
But
Yeah.
are we requiring that permit to be issued at that time and them to pay those fees? Or do we want to keep it with our building permit process?
I think it's separate.
Okay.
I don't feel like,
I don't know, how do you
Just asking the
feel?
question.
How do you feel? You want to gang it together?
no, you
It's an
should pay,
application
you should pay
process.
the application fee when you apply.
Yes,
There's no guarantee you're gonna
Yes.
get your allocations. You apply, you pay the fee for the
Yeah.
processing of the permit. If there's an allocation fee that you're supposed to pay at the time the permit's issued, that's separate. So you pay that when the permit's issued.
yeah, that's what I was suggesting. I wasn't clear about it. Councilman, did you have a comment?
I'm worried about an $18,400 fee, and then another fee, and then another fee.
Mhm.
Are we encouraging economic development, or are we
Should this be
curtailing it?
discussed at council?
That's
I
why
mean,
we're playing right now. We're discussing if.
But that's the current, I mean, part of the base of that is
Yeah, I
current
think
code.
it's the council's job, Bob King. Councilman King, I think it's the council's job to determine fees.
Well, yeah, it
Certainly not
is,
the planning
but,
commission's.
I'm seeing in there something that makes me nervous.
Yeah, well,
No,
you're gonna,
it's a simple.
this is a
it's in there
draft
for-
ordinance, so you'll be voting on it at the council
You can make it
level.
zero.
It's just a question.
You could defer
Do we want
fees.
to charge a fee for the processing of the application? Yes or no? Is there a
I-
consensus? And then,
I don't think that's the planning commission's decision.
Right, but
You have a
presumably
$49
somebody
fee,
wants
I
to
don't-
present an ordinance to the council that needs to be introduced. What does this body recommend that the ordinance say?
I mean, I think that the purpose is, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, you have an administrative fee for administrative staff time. So someone's paying the staff. It's either the taxpayers or the people who are using the staff time.
Does that $18,000 fee that we now charge cover that?
I don't know. That's something, the council might know that, Bob.
I have no idea.
That, I don't know.
It's a connection.
sanitary hookup fee and your water hookup
Okay,
fee.
so that's, it costs $18,000 to hook up the water and sewer in the county.
Yes, it does.
Per code.
That's the infrastructure, that's because of the stuff.
So you just do an admin fee based on 1 hour of staff time with fringe and benefits?
But that's why.
I mean, really,
That's why
because if
Bob
not, the
said
taxpayers
that
are paying
we
it.
Yeah.
We're
discussed
not
that
gonna
at
go up there and
council
use their
level, what
time.
Frank's
Right.
Yeah.
picking
So
up,
I,
Okay,
Because this
so
body's not.
Lindy suggested,
It's a great suggestion.
1 hour, and Frank Iliano suggested, to bill it towards the filing fees that are put up for concept plan. So they put up a $1,500 filing fee, and then, Tom, could there possibly be a mechanism that, the fee would be charged against that?
You already do that.
Sure.
You already do that.
Well, not for this, but yes, we do.
Yeah,
We
we
do it
got
for
that up.
recording
Thomas
and,
fees and everybody else.
right.
Okay,
Can I make a suggestion?
what? Oh, I know, it's their call. Yes.
You're talking about an administrative processing fee, and that's fairly common in a lot of things. And you kick around up to 18,000 or something, but it seems to me, that you're really talking about a small fee to say that if you really want to file this, it's $50 or $100.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Since you're really talking about administrative, when you get to page 21, I would suggest that you strike the concept of then charging a fee because you got approved. You walk in the door, you pick up your approved permit, they're gonna charge you again. They're gonna charge 18,000. I would suggest that on page 21, you drop that fee and simply suggest to the council that you have a minimal dollar amount administrative fee for the right to file and have it processed.
I agree with you. I thought that we said that the permit fee was actually the hookup fee, but that's, are we saying that? Okay, yeah, then I agree. Take out
On page
the second
20,
fee.
it's the application.
I still think you go up when you
What
write
about-
the application process, $1,500.
We don't need two fees.
Striking this one on page 21.
It comes off like 59, because you don't know what kind of fees the town's going to
So
go.
simplify it.
So you put out 59 and a fee, just like we do with concept.
But on page 20, there should be establishment, either whether it's from the town council. Do you want me to wait?
No,
or-
go ahead.
What?
Okay.
Good choice.
On page 20, there should be a consensus of the planning commission that, yes, it is appropriate for a fee.
I think it's more than a fair for you to charge you that
Okay.
fee.
But what I also
$50
think the
like-
planning
This is Washington
commission,
County?
needs to weigh in on, that
Yeah.
on page 21, that the town is not going to require the water and sewer connection fee permit to be paid with the approval of this allocation. That's the determination. And the water and sanitary sewer connection permit is the 18,400. It's a simple yes or no. So if you don't feel that there should be any other fees, you know.
Is there a
When
fee
else-
now?
when
Well,
el-
actually, it's not up to us.
What-
You guys aren't, to be clear, you guys are not discussing what the fee is. It's a yes
Yeah,
or
right.
no. Do you want a fee or not?
Right.
The
No.
council will make the decision
council
on
decides
if we
it.
agree there's a fee and what that
Right,
fee
Should
will
be.
be.
Right.
So
Okay,
it's a
you're
yes or
talking
no
about
for
the
fee.
connection fee again?
On page 21, we're talking about the actual water and sewer
Connection.
Approval fee.
connection
Permit?
permit,
Yeah.
which
no,
together
not
is
approval. Yeah.
18,400.
Okay.
Is
So
there-
my question back to you is, when else would it be paid?
It's currently paid at the building permit process before the building permit's released. Is there a desire to make
Makes sense.
the applicants, once they receive that allocation approval, pay that fee? Just,
No,
No.
okay, then
No.
we have that clear.
no.
Easy.
No fee, done, next.
Okay.
Next. Anything else on 21?
Yeah, there's something on the same paragraph. In addition, we should incorporate other post-connection conditions such as not knowingly exceed the allocation of, their permit and all that. And this is the question I was bringing up at the end of the last discussion, which is, if there's any question as to whether there should be some fines or penalties or some action taken because somebody exceeded this permit, the question I have is, I think you have to definitively determine who sets that amount. In other words, how many EDUs are allocated to you? 250 gallons a day, 1,000, whatever it is. If the town is the one that sets that, and then the town turns around and says, oh, we set that, so now we're gonna tell you that you exceeded it, and now we're gonna fine you. I'm uncomfortable with that because, you create a situation out of the control of the, particular individual who owns that building, and then you're gonna fine them for something they're not controlling, because in looking at the water usage numbers, it would appear that there is not a really good correlation between the EDUs assigned at the time that someone's applying to develop or build some property and the amount of water they actually use.
Well, that's not very helpful, is it?
No, so if one can't say that the correlation should be really pretty good, then it's difficult to say that, if you underutilize or overutilize estimated water usage was, as Scott pointed out earlier, and there is no fine, no penalty, no negative action. And in consideration of any suggestion like this would now make that an issue. And I don't think we want to go down that road.
Well, how do we make it more accurate? I mean,
First of all, I think you have to have a commitment that if somebody comes in and says, I'm going to put a restaurant in, for example, and you can use anywhere from 50 to over 100,000 gallons during a quarter, right? So you set a permit that allows them 75,000 in there, and because they determine, I'm going to use 75,000, I'm signing on that line, and I'm signing that I'm responsible, I will not use that. I think it gives you some authority to enforce that. But if he comes in and says, I'm going to put a restaurant at 50,000 and use 75,000 because the town said, oh, I only think it's going to use that much in a quarter, you're on pretty weak ground coming back to the person said you exceeded it, now I'm going to.
certainly if there's nothing in writing, you're
Well,
pretty weak ground.
I just think you don't want to address this at
Go
this
ahead.
point in time.
So what Heather was going to
Scott.
say something.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, good. Part of the recommendation that came from the Water Commission was the reducing of gallons of water. And that was something that I was highlighting before, was regards to if we over-release and then people utilize that and then we have a shortage, we therefore then have to have some constraints in
Have to
place
pull
that
back.
we can pull people back in. So to just do the 20-20-20 plan and you have people who consume more than the 20 that we're releasing, you in effect erode the reserves that we have in place today.
Understandable, we're under that same risk right now, and my suggestion, before you jump into something like, what the suggestion is that you step back, consider how you would go about that in an enforceable way that would, protect the town from liability, at the same time protect our water capacity.
So-
So I'm saying step back, rethink all of that.
So just out of consideration, Dick, in this concept, that if you're only dealing with new individuals that we're allocating consumption to, you can't retroactively go back to all the consumers of water now and say, hey, everybody, here's this agreement we want you to sign based on what we told you before back in the past, and everybody signed this, and that's all you're gonna be allowed to use.
I think what you do is you use all your resources. What happened is, you guys already have a lot of history. In other words, we can go back and do other restaurants. I can do that for you guys for free. I can tell you other restaurants we have, other business, that we exceed, or we undersee, that you can get it. Listen, it's hard to say for a restaurant comes in, we're gonna use 100,000. But if the restaurant gets very busy, oh, I'm gonna catch you, or I'm gonna penalize you because you're busy.
What?
You want them to be busy.
Yeah.
But because you have a data for a long time now, we have some restaurants for 25 years. You can use that data and see that's what the office use, that's what the restaurant use. For instance, you take a bank, the bank only use like 10,000 gallons in a quarter. So what, are we gonna give them a credit? No, we don't. So one does the other.
I can tell you that, a house with one EDU is the typical, but that's what, roughly 22,000 gallons a quarter. And we have residences that use 25, 30, 35, 40,000. But yet they were rated at 22,500, whatever it is a quarter. So there's a lot of
Well-
disparity between, a residential user or a restaurant or whatever you want to, there are a lot of retail establishments that are 2 EDUs
Yeah.
or up to 50,000 gallons, use 10.
Dick, within the context of, we obviously have limited resource for the near term. And because the town engineer is monitoring usage, he's going to be issuing an annual report. Do we need to go there in terms of ironclad policy and, risk slaps and so forth?
I want to say you don't do that.
I don't, I agree, until it becomes an issue, and over careful monitoring in the short term, that's,
Basically, the town will become a police state, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. We will have no
No.
residents, no businesses, no
we don't want to do
anything
that.
to micromanage in this body
Right,
does
right.
not have the time or energy. I know myself as a council person with a full-time job, don't have the energy to go around to every single consumer and say, how much did you use this quarter, how much did you use this quarter, and then try and normalize across the board and say, was it plus or minus, as Frank said. Sometimes you have businesses that are gonna be using this, and the next time they're using this. And are we gonna go into this big swing of credits and debits and checks and balances, and, no.
I don't think we
And
want
it's
to
right
go.
when you say, you use and you pay, let me tell you, my restaurants, we have a closing, they gotta go to each bathroom, each sink, to make sure it's
Yeah.
not running. Because they sing and the bathroom runs, we know right away when we get the next meeting, what are we
I mean, that's why we have a reserve, to help compensate for overutilization, underutilization, and the water allotment that was given to the town, and what we keep is supposed to be enough of a pad that in those instances of high consumption in a period, we are still fine. Low consumption, that's even better, we don't really care, it doesn't impact the system, we still have excess capacity. But if we overextend ourselves, we're gonna be in trouble, regardless if we're billing the individuals for it, because we will not be able to provide the EDUs that we've already allotted to the other people via their permits. And I think that's something that still hasn't been taken into consideration.
I don't think this is the place to take into consideration.
No,
No, I'm just commenting.
no, but I think we're of one mind on it. Anything else on page 21?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add, I mean, Marty was exceptionally conscientious when obtaining those figures, and Frank alluded to that. I mean, Marty requires real-life, water bills, and he compares it to the industry standard, and the other thing is, Barney is going to review the capacity, and I mean, if you see the average daily demand, fluctuate, I mean, that's gonna throw up a red flag for you, isn't it, Lauren?
Yeah, but I'm agreeing with what everybody's saying. We haven't had a problem. We don't take exactly what they say they're gonna use. We'll review it ourselves and see if it's close to what we think it would be. But it really hasn't been an issue, and where some do go over, some are under, it does balance out, so.
And
I don't see there being a need to monitor it that closely afterwards.
Barney, and I'll just throw this out for the public's benefit too. In the instance that you end up seeing a trend where somebody is over-consuming over a historic period over and over again, there are stipulations in place that we can provide warnings to them, they may have a leak, whatever. Worst case scenario, we can shut down the water to find out what the problem is and get service restored to them for what they're allotted, correct? Okay.
Actually, the town is very good, we get a lot of letters.
Is they use a ton of water during the year, and so we basically told them they could not add any more beds or any more rooms to their facility. We basically cut that off.
So just to be clear, I mean, I want to make sure that there are constraints in place that everybody just can't run amok in.
Well, it's not happening now.
We get a letter from Brian or Gordon, saying, hey, you may want to look, it looks like you have water.
Yeah, when your water bill gets high.
The biggest single control we have is progressive water rates.
And that was the best thing that I
I
thought
think
that
the
the Water
other way you
Commission
can
put
do
together.
this is put a bunch of signs up, say, drink the beer and save the water.
Okay, sign
Comes
me
out
up.
the other end, though.
Just point them to the tap.
All right, but before this commission meeting deteriorates even further, at the bottom of 21, and I think we talked about this some a week ago, we talked about expiration of
Yeah.
the permit, and we talked about resubmission. Any additional thoughts about that?
I guess my question was, what happens to the concept plan? Is it, they gotta go they have to do the whole thing again, if their water allocation permit, expires? Are they just doing the part dealing with the water allocation permit? They gotta go back and apply, or do they go back to square one with, having to submit a new concept plan? I mean, that's what I kinda wanted guidance on. Here.
And I guess I'm gonna ask a further question, if they properly reasoned this, in essence of this, and they had a water permit for that property expired in such time that it lapsed for non-conforming uses, is this gonna be another instance
I didn't follow that one. You're saying that,
2013-5. It's coming up.
Remember that?
yeah,
If we
Right.
end up having a property that was already
Okay.
conformed for something, are we gonna have to look at water allocations for whatever that non-conforming use was, such that it's something more than it should have been before? Is that something that we need to work in here now versus revisiting this again in the future?
Not if the exception expired.
There's potential discussion of revisiting expired non-conforming use, and therefore, I wanna know if we need to have some wording to that effect in here.
Or it would already have allocations, correct?
Not, the non-conforming use would have had allocations, it expired, so those allocations went away.
Do they go away?
and what does happen on that?
What's happened? It would be a vacant building on
According to this, it says it
At a
expired.
commercial use, it was a non-conforming use, like Dennis Kitchen. It goes out of business. It, you know,
Goes to residential.
it's been dormant. Now there's legislation potentially to revive it. It's commercial
I wanna
use.
nip two birds with one.
So first of all,
What's the residential use right now?
Well,
First-
What's residential? It goes back to residential.
Right, but now if, what I'm
We said it
suggesting, Frank,
expired.
just for clarification,
Before
is
it
that if it
expires.
reverts back to the non-conforming use and it's elevated to the higher percentile in consumption.
How much is the residential right now? 1,000 bag? 250. If
Okay.
he goes back and he does like industry or something, it's not a restaurant, he probably not even, that doesn't even come to play.
You have
Jennifer?
to- And I'm looking at it not from a specific property, I'm looking at it in the overarching context. You have to look at how it impacts the non-conforming use period. So if we have an instance where you have a non-conforming use that's a high water user allotment, and we have a property, not currently, but something in that situation, this ordinance would apply. So therefore, do we need to have something in here that accounts for that?
if you have a non-conforming use and it ceases, do the allocations remain on that property?
I don't
Typically,
think
they
so,
don't remain on the property,
So
just
they
like,
go away until somebody else.
because
not that cold storage was a non-conforming use,
Yeah.
but, you know, they had a large allocation, that doesn't necessarily just remain with that property.
They have to reapply,
Reapply.
regardless of whether it's non-conforming or not.
And even this new ordinance would anticipate it, they'd have to put in a new site plan, which would cause, have a concept phase, at which point you would review it with APFO,
But here's my
and this
concern.
here.
And Tom, this is, maybe we talk offline, and if we do, just say fine, I'll stop. But my concern is that if you have a non-conforming use, you have to look at the left and the right-hand parts. Non-conforming use, you say, yeah, go ahead. Well, now you have all the infrastructure and everything riding underneath of it, i.e. water allocation. If now they have to reapply for something, you said, sure, you can have your non-conforming use back, you can't have the water for it. Well, the non-conforming use is written in such a way that states that it will not be of an economic impact to the individual, yada, 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 but they don't have the water, so therefore they can't have the non-conforming use because of resources. So therefore, your left hand wasn't working with the
But maybe
right.
that's another reason.
Well, that's another,
That it shouldn't
some,
be
yeah,
But I'm just saying, if it can be fixed here, I want to fix it.
it needs to
such
be
that-
fixed in the other ordinance.
Well, that's a different ordinance. I'm dealing with this ordinance.
Yeah, I
You
don't
guys are
think
talking
it-
I
about
don't see how
water.
you can guarantee no economic impact. So,
I understand.
That-
I'm
that's
looking
where
at
I
the
would
water
fix
part
it.
that's in front of you guys.
You don't wanna change the water, what they used to use, or like if you change it to restaurants?
I don't know,
How
say
can
it's
you-
one
how
of your
can you
restaurants,
guarantee
and all
no
of a sudden we
impact
turn it
if
back
I
to
know,
a house.
I mean, what you're saying,
And then it goes back to a restaurant, well, you've allocated for a house.
that means you're setting aside all
well,
the
they have to go to
non-conforming
the end of the
uses.
line. I mean, it's already, they've already lost their allocation.
Approved, that could be
You're setting,
reverted back.
Right.
you're setting them all
But
out
they've
as
already
a
lost their
priority.
allocation.
That's what we said
So
last
it goes all
last
the way
week.
back too.
Yeah, I mean, I
Not
think
with
if
this
it's to be
wording,
fixed,
or-
it's to be fixed in the other ordinance.
Yeah,
Just remember, there is
exactly.
distinction between zoning on the one hand and planning on the other. And,
Right.
you know, just because somebody's got the zoning doesn't mean that they're necessarily
It's
entitled
it's an
to,
Right.
entitlement, right.
you
Right,
know,
right.
so.
Okay. Page 22.
But you didn't, did you get your question answered about operations?
Not really. I assume that all that expires is just the permit itself, that the concept plan would remain approved
Didn't we
assume,
discuss the
right?
concept plan having an expiration date itself?
All right, let's clarify that.
Yeah, we did.
Didn't we say the concept plan has its own process, its own expiration date?
We,
And if that
We've been down
happens
this
to get to the point where the concept plan expires, it expires.
Right, and I think if that's the consensus, that answers my question.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
because
for
we talked
something
about
from
there's,
Heather.
there has to be, you know, there might have to be another traffic study because things
Yeah.
changed. We talked about this a little bit last week.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
looking for kind of a nod from her, but
Heather,
Okay, then you're right, with the traffic study and all that.
Got it for
then-
right?
Then start all of the beginning. Maybe it'll get more incentive to get it done.
Avoiding the question.
oh, okay, all right. At least you're honest about it.
What did you say?
is there currently an expiration date on a concept plan?
No,
Site plan or
but
concept?
that's for subdivision.
I think that was.
Okay, so there's nothing
That's
on a
site
site plan type,
It was a site
concept plan for a
But
site.
you know, I think that
And we
might be
need to
a
draft the
an
guidelines.
oversight
Right.
that goes from all
Right.
these years,
Mhm.
because
Right.
I think at some point, I don't know, we
Your
might,
site plan doesn't expire?
that's why I didn't want.
Site plan
We're
does.
talking about concept.
Concept plan.
Concept.
Our county does expire, we have a site plan in Andersburg, we
No.
have to pay.
We're talking about a concept plan.
Concept plan.
Right now, in our code, it says the site plan expires. in
At 18 months.
Yeah.
Concept, it doesn't matter, she still got.
That's a final.
But concept plan,
They don't.
you know, it's a busy day. We'll have to think of that and see what some other.
okay.
But the point is
Yeah,
for
should.
the purpose of this ordinance, whatever is done with the concept plan is to be addressed, and separately from this, this is simply going to address in this section what happens when the permit for allocation expires. Okay,
Okay, so
got it.
at the top of 22, we have a continuation of that. J, revocation of water and sewer allocation permits. The way it's currently written, upon revocation of a water sewer permit, the developer owner must reapply for such and obtain reapproval. So what about the question in parentheses? What happens to the concept plan?
First of all, is that before the
I think we
building
just
permit?
addressed that.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's,
And does J apply before the building permit's issued?
after?
Yeah.
So what would be the condition for this? What would be the,
This
they're
is,
not-
the-
when would we?
this is
when-
the clock has been ticking and 2 years have passed?
No, this is revocation of a allocation permit after a building permit's already been issued. So
This-
what would be the reason why
Because
you
they're
do
not
this?
building. We're not
If
building.
they're
Well, your
not
building
building.
permit has an expiration date.
Okay.
So what would be the reason why you would revoke this permit? Because you want the allocations reassigned to somewhere else?
Well, you can't just park the water.
Yeah, but
Well,
if
this
the building
came
permit,
from a suggestion at one of our meetings.
if
Might
the
not be
building
the plan.
permit's expired, I mean, I can understand,
Yeah, I think if the building permit expires, it automatically,
it possibly could go, I don't know,
so it's like, is that, Tom,
I think
instead
it's
of saying that it expires?
3 years maybe.
Is it by saying that it, because, okay, the building permit may expire from the county level in 1 year.
Mhm.
Are we saying that if they don't issue, I mean, if they lose their building permit, then the expiry of the water allocation is therefore reduced from 24 months to that date?
The answer is I'm not sure. This came from a comment at, I think, our first meeting with the Planning Commission, I believe, in which somebody had expressed a desire to be able to essentially revoke a water and sewer allocation permit in the event that certain milestones were not met in the building process, that is to say, after issuance of a building permit. I'm not quite sure what that,
Yeah,
Right.
whoever suggested it was necessarily,
Because if they,
Well, their site plan has an expiration date too, does,
18 months.
But if
They're
the site
final.
plans come in and the property is zoned commercial, they always have the word rights. So that it doesn't apply. When you approve a site plan, the property has to be annexed to the town. So that property has a zoning, you will be commercial. So you will never lose the rights to the word.
No, I
Yes, you
think
do.
water rights and allocation
If-
are two different things.
If the site plan expired, you'd lose the allocation. That's how you would lose
But
it.
yeah, but the property is zoning, you don't lose your zoning,
Yes, you
you don't
do.
lose your
Your-
education.
Your, Tom, and the water rights is one thing, but the available capacity is another.
Yeah, right.
And
That's two
essentially-
separate things.
This is the available capacity.
I mean, I might have a piece of property that's zoned commercial, but if the town doesn't have the water allocation to give me, I don't know that it's necessarily the case that I have an entitlement to a water allocation simply by virtue of how the property's zoned.
You mean existing or new ones? New ones?
New ones.
No,
No, not existing, we're not going down that road.
yeah, we're not talking about existing. But currently, if the site plan expires, then the water allocation expires.
Right.
In the current code.
As I understand it.
so the site plan has a expiration date that requires you to pull a building permit. Heather? And if you pull that building permit in 18 months, and then building permit expires,
Say that last part again.
if you pull the building permit within the 18 months, and then the building permit expires, does the site plan then expire?
Well, not retroactively, but just by.
I mean, is the site plan
Virtue
good
of the
forever?
Site plan being.
Just
After
because you went
building
out and
permit
applied for a
expires.
building permit? Or you got a building
That's
permit?
a deep question, Tom.
Thanks a lot.
I'm picturing the process in my mind and
Well,
Well, I think she's asking what's currently happens, or has that never happened?
it,
Well, I mean, Walmart pulled their building permit, they pulled a building permit for that store way before the site plan was ever approved. Like a year and a half ago.
Another story, we don't want to.
Oh, my gosh.
They did, they pulled a building permit on that
Wow.
That,
way before they even went to the planning commission.
and Heather, that doesn't happen anymore, right?
No, because back then you're allowed to put the building.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not now.
Right.
So does the building permit expire in a year at the county level?
Asking for a third one.
they have 6 months to
They're
get
proposing.
the first inspection like a footer. If they haven't gotten that first inspection, then they get a card, we're gonna, your permits, we're gonna like, what do they call it?
Revoke.
Your permit, it happens to Frank. And then, so I'm making sure I'm telling it right. And
We
then,
just throw it in the trash.
Why would it,
and then, I mean, if there's not significant progress from the county, like you can't just get a footer and let it sit there for,
No, that's different.
yeah.
If you put a shovel in the ground and you not build it, it's never gonna finish.
Well, I know, but the county checks up on that every 6 months.
Yeah, once you put, but the counties, they've been very flexible.
yeah, I would imagine they extend it quite often, don't they? Forever.
Okay.
As long as you request it, right?
I guess the question that I need some guidance on to be able to draft this is, are there situations where the town might want to revoke a water and sewer allocation permit? If the answer to that question is yes, my next question is, under what circumstance?
And on what grounds?
On what grounds?
Only thing I can think of would be a building permit expires, and there's no progress, there's absolutely, it's not gonna happen.
That's what this is saying. There's no progress.
Well, a
that's-
deviation from a site
that's-
plan would that necessarily, I mean, there's other provisions for dealing with the deviation from a site plan, are there not?
Some would say yes. Not everybody would say yes.
That's quite accurate.
Well, I think we have to, I don't know if we know the answer to this question Jennifer posed earlier.
Had to do
If the building permit expires, does the site plan expire? So, because if it doesn't, that might be another situation where we'd want to pull a water allocation. And earlier, we were just talking about, I believe from our green tree discussion a few months ago, that if we didn't, well, they brought their own water, but if they had a water allocation and they didn't get an extension, they would have lost the water allocation. If that's not correct, then that would be another situation where we would want to pull the water allocation when a site plan expires and is not extended, which I think is current law, but if it's not, it should be.
I don't think it is. I think it should be, was what came up.
Okay.
So the bottom line is when there's.
Probably gives me something to work with. at
Something
least
about
start
progress, you know,
drafts.
So that's
progress.
consistent.
Could we
Yeah.
wrap that up into the expiration date instead of calling it like, like revoking the water allocation to say that these things will
Okay.
cause.
Yep.
Trigger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure, and,
Okay,
24
better.
months
sure.
unless a building permit, no, they should have, I'm sorry, I have to go through this in my head.
That's all right.
They have 24 months to pull a building permit.
I thought it was
No, they would have to get a building permit in 18 months.
18, right.
But if they got their site plan extended.
Oh, should we just coordinate, just say, site plans are good for 2 years?
Yeah. Make it all match.
I mean, when they get extended for 2 years, right? Not 18 months, or is it 18 months?
Because of the economy, it's been.
What?
Yeah, it's been all over the place.
Yeah, I think we could do it 2 years.
It can be longer.
That's the other
Yeah.
thing we have to work
Oh,
on.
okay.
Why don't you push it out to 24?
Yeah, just make it all
Because
consistent.
of the economy.
I think because of the economy, that.
Yeah, it'll be easier, and they're
add
not
that
keeping
to
different
your
dates.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
So the site plan expiration, the water allocation expiration time.
Yeah.
so that would be helpful.
Seems
Yeah.
better. Seems better.
And then, if a building permit later would become rescinded by the county, question is, do you feel that,
Could give them, you could start the time,
We could do the good cause language.
start the time over again. You said they had 2 years to pull, 18 months to pull the building, start the 18 months.
Or you could take the water allocation unless they show good cause for having the building permit expire or be revoked or whatever.
Then still, I'd only give them 18 months before it be reissued,
Oh, right.
just like anybody else.
So
I
what,
think whatever you do, you want to make sure you send them a notice, that you got 6 months, if you don't do nothing, it expires. At least it doesn't just pull them, Even when the time say you got 24 months, just give them another 6 months, if you're not doing nothing, it's going to expire.
reach out 18 until you have 6 months, if that's.
that would make sense.
Usually I start it before I get the building.
That would make sense.
Do you guys do that now when people's site plans are going to expire too?
Maybe that's the cause for
We do.
revoking, if they start before the building permit now.
Babysit, talk
Kids
about
babysit.
permit fees and why they
I
should
know, I
be
know.
paying them.
I know, if you have to reach out.
That's where that permit fee money goes to.
Their administrative fees are going to go up.
The permit fee money is going to the reaching out.
Now, okay, so we have, all right, so we're gonna extend the site plan approval for
24
24
months.
months. It's valid for 24
Up to.
months.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier.
Try to get all the
Okay.
dates somewhere.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. We've got K and we've got L. Pretty straightforward. What was your question here?
Which one?
Denton, under L?
Yeah, I just, in the Denton, I'm not sure, this late hour, I can wrap my head around this, but the Denton code, generally, these are non-transferable, at least before connection.
Non-transferable,
I agree. No.
don't even need to explain it.
Not transferable, that's.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. M, conditions? Are we all in agreement with
I
that?
think we did discuss that.
I think we did that, yes. Very reasonable. we also address what you had in parentheses down there, Tom?
Yeah, under the note, yeah,
Uh-huh,
I believe so.
okay.
I mean, there may be post-connection conditions that we would want to put in here, but
Okay.
the second part of that note, I think we've already discussed, and that was the consensus that we do not want to get into monitoring usage once the allocation permits are issued.
All right. I think,
Scott, does your issue with the non-conforming uses N take care of that in some way? N? Page 20,
I don't think it probably does.
we
it's
still need to.
different. It's different. But otherwise, that's very straightforward.
That's just stating they're not entitled to, they're still
Right.
apply, and this body can then say
Right.
at which point then they're still impacted. So it doesn't,
You have to remove that non-impacted language.
well,
It's coming to you all next.
Okay, good. We'll make sure it's out.
forewarned, it will be introduced, and then you guys take the deal with it.
Okay.
Do we have a local precedent, Troy? Okay, and right underneath in 109-19-6, Water Expansion Fund.
Yeah, that was when we eliminated an earlier section that had parts of it that are going to be kind of superseded by what we're doing here. Part of that had the Water Expansion Fund, so I wanted to make sure not to inadvertently delete that. So I've just created a new section for it.
Okay.
Do we have the ability, does the town have the ability to use that money for sewer?
I would,
Do you want to add the word sewer?
Actual sewer expansion.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
All right, any final comments? Yes, sir.
Just one question for clarification. So these priority areas, special projects, emergency claims are going to be hashed out at a later date, details? Or
Yes.
for percentages?
And then,
Was it determined if the emergency claims was going to be strictly for within town boundaries, or if there was going to be any determination if there was going to be applicable, if there was perhaps a property that was not contiguous with town boundaries?
I don't think we've determined.
I don't
We
think
haven't
we've
determined.
I'm
determined.
not sure that there was a consensus on that. My proposal would be to leave it as written, which does not necessarily confine it to
It offers some
in-town
latitude.
properties. Because you would want to, as a planning matter, although it's probably not a big issue, in terms of allocation, you would want to allocate for either scenario.
And there might be some extenuating circumstances.
Sure.
I just say it's been the Water and Sewer Commission's longstanding opinion that town should not provide water or sewer outside of town limits. So the Water and Sewer Commission has long believed that, property should be annexed into the town in order to be serviced by the town unless directed by state law to do otherwise. And the most recent example is we do have one annexation for that very reason of, I think it was a, I don't know, septic system failure or well failure. And that's contiguous to the town, and the process was made very clear by town council that you had to be annexed. So I don't think you want to be too vague, because I don't think you want to open up possibility of a lawsuit if somebody, particularly non-contiguous to the town, who has a well failure and says, I see I can get a water allocation here. So I think that's another one of those roads no one go down.
Can I ask if you and I are talking about the same case?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's his house.
808 Ellsworth?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Mr. Sikora.
Yeah.
It was
That's
same
the-
case.
That's the property
Yeah,
line.
that's the property in
So
question.
we'll introduce you.
That's the question, continuity came up because, this development.
Survey, the initial survey showed it contiguous. on further review, there was a 15-foot strip between the church property and the Squirrel property that made it non-contiguous and thus not eligible for annexation under the state code. And, and this, just to be clear, as it's written, you know, it really contemplates any circumstance under which, as a matter of emergency, you know, there's either an application or a Maryland Department of the Environment 9222 order. So, but that's as it's currently written. The question's going to be, you know, if you don't set forth the ability to allocate properties outside the town, from where do you get your allocation then to respond to a 9222 order from the Maryland Department of the Environment for a property outside the town? And that is not eligible for annexation because it's non-contiguous.
What, wouldn't that Maryland law override the allocation you made?
Well, yes and no, but don't you, as a matter of planning, want to be able to set aside allocations in case you receive that kind of order? I mean, I'm not, we're probably not talking about a big issue here at the end of the day, but meaning from an allocation, I don't mean from your perspective.
No, I think that's a single residential property, but I know that we have, for example, the nursing home on the other side of 70, we have, I guess it's down, trailer park right there. That have had problems or questionable about their septic systems, was it Four Seasons Restaurant, was there because of those are possibilities that are significant enough to the, I would say, the town and the amount of water that they may be using, that, to me, it would take the state of Maryland to direct us to do that, so you don't set a dangerous precedence in your code. And at the same time, I don't know how you set aside under emergency conditions sufficient water to meet those types of things.
Well, why can't we just narrow it down to a either residential or very small, not more than one ECU, or, you know, so it can't,
Yeah, you'd have to, I think you gotta put confines around this.
yeah, well, that's, because we don't want that either, what you're talking about.
That could be a designated reserve,
Is
very modest amount.
all the costs relative to hookup and
Yeah,
everything
no
else.
special
which are
exception, doesn't like that.
standard process.
I think as a caring community, we gotta go there.
You just don't get into all of that. This purpose for this very low probability that it's going to happen very often, or if it happens, then it would happen in one of those more significant places that would put it under.
Yeah, I think
And
we
the
can
landowners didn't want
put
to
language
develop,
that
right?
leaves
It's one of the reasons we're talking about here.
their sense of entitlement, or,
Right, although that would be actually a better location.
Single-family lots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no more than one EDU per.
yeah, I,
Good too, yeah.
With no possibility to subdivide.
right,
Yeah.
which is all we want, yes. We don't want any big thing like that, no.
Okay, does this mean that we have worked our way through this?
I know, amazing.
What's next steps,
At least
Tom?
for the effort, at least for the first
So what
time through.
I'll do is to go back through, incorporate your comments with a revised draft for, I guess, initial introduction, or at least, if not a formal introduction, at least review by the town council, which probably will not occur for the May meeting. So it'll probably be the June meeting.
Okay, do we need to look at it again, or do you have
It's
the
up to you
guidance from
all.
us
If you
that
all would
need?
like me, like to take
I-
another
I
review,
think we
that'd
need
be
a
fine.
separate work session for that.
Plus, we haven't gone,
Yeah, we just left them.
Right.
tabled those cap
Uh-huh,
until later.
Okay,
all right.
so then for your May meeting, is that the one you
Or we
next
can
meet?
do a workshop, whatever you guys, I know Heather's on vacation at some,
We should really just stick, we should go to our rezoning.
Yeah.
I think this needs a separate little work session.
So
We can give focus to it.
what was your plan for June? It was coming back to here in June?
Well, they
Or
want to see
Town
it again.
council.
You wanted to introduce it to
I think we should.
Well, that was what I initially said, but this, the planning
What if
commission
they
wants
send
to
it out
see
to
this
us and we
again
each review
before
it?
that time.
To
So,
determine if we, you know,
yep.
Start.
yep.
We need to read about it.
Tom, why don't we start with, as soon as it's, you know, efficient for you, Heather can distribute, you know, your updates.
Okay,
And then we can take a look at that and determine
sure.
if we need to convene or
Okay.
whatever.
So we'll try to have that around the,
Okay,
like May
Right.
15th? I think that's a
yeah, something like May
Wednesday.
15.
Mid-May? okay,
Yeah,
all right,
that'll work.
Marching forward.
all right. Heather, unfinished business.
Yes.
Let's talk OPE and any other potential zoning classifications like mixed use.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much.
OPE, as you know, Frank Dirkscrawl and I met probably 2 or 3 months ago.
I read through that today.
Huh?
I read through that today.
And, I mean, I sent that to everybody, right?
I think so.
My emails.
Thank you. We just want to see your.
They like your face.
Maybe,
So
maybe
the-
not.
the next-
Actually, I don't know if you sent it to everybody or
I
if
don't
you
think
sent it
so.
to
I'm thinking-
Leslie and Gary.
I didn't
Because
get,
I would have loved to have read it.
Okay. Okay.
I don't have it,
I
because
didn't get
Gary and
it.
I were supposed to look at it, so I can forward
Yeah.
it.
So,
I can forward it to them.
okay.
Okay.
I guess the.
You don't get it,
the
email me.
Discussions we,
I will.
we need to vet that, and Bill had mentioned at the work session about, a subcommittee.
A subcommittee approach. The larger question here is one of lining up our ducks for Chapter 4.
Right.
All the various components we need, you know, to pull together Chapter 4, the MGE, the WRE, review of our zoning classifications, consideration, do they need to be tweaked? Do we need anything else, given the developmental vision that is going to be in the master plan? I think that's the larger context.
The OPE, I'm not as concerned about, in relation to the completion of Chapter 4.
Okay, good.
It's no secret that the OPE is slated for the Harrison LaShire property.
Mhm.
We can basically have a paragraph in our future annexation area that this property is designated for office, park, and employment, and the language, the
It-
zoning district is being.
It's going to be a new zoning district.
Right, right, and it can be part of the action plan that is continued with. The one draft zoning that was sent to you several months ago is the mixed-use zone, and I think that's a more important
Mhm.
subcommittee focus right
Mhm.
now, because
Mhm.
it will help me put a lot of the information about our housing stock in the chapter.
Right.
You know, we don't want to grow residentially, but what type of residential components do we want? That's more pressing for me, so.
I think it
I don't
clearly
know
is.
If that's how you feel, or what your take
Well,
is on it.
I think the direction of the master plan that we have laid out, and everyone seems to be in agreement with, is a very integrative direction. It's infill, it's putting priority on downtown redevelopment and revitalization, additional, you know, with several particular earmarked properties that come to mind and make sense. That lends itself naturally to an integrative type of design classification. We don't necessarily have that in hand right now. So I think it's a very important exercise for us.
If for nothing, no other reason to vet it and say this isn't for us, you know? I
Yeah,
think If for
yeah.
no other reason,
Right.
because then that can write the chapter that
Exactly.
say, this is how we are, this is how we're gonna be.
So do you see the scope of that as hammering it out? Of,
Yeah, just,
at least first, do we want to go there? Do we need it? Do we think it's a natural extension of our other
They're
classifications?
already hammered it out, right?
Well, exactly.
Presented it already.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
had
it's just
questions
whether we want
you
to,
guys got through 23 pages of that water allocation thing.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, having, you know, a smaller group of people, you know,
Okay.
and then, but that's,
Are there individuals who have a particular interest in working on that, working with Heather on it?
Yeah,
I think a while back I had talked to you about doing that.
Yeah.
So since we're
Okay.
putting OP on the back burner, you know.
Leslie, Lindy, are you, because you seem very interested
Lindy and Leslie?
in an NXD.
Okay, great. Now, all of us, let's task ourselves and why don't you resend it out? And
Okay.
let's all take a review and let's, forward them our comments and thoughts. Okay, but you guys take the lead, if you would.
And the OPE, we can forward
Right.
just to, and that's, you know, the OPE, we definitely need to move forward on, but I don't know that we need to finalize it for the master plan.
Right,
Good.
yeah.
Unless Monica, I mean,
Since
I
we
would
have it.
know more
I
about
still have all my old notes on that.
3
from
years.
the beginning to.
Yeah.
We have the different drafts,
Yep.
and ironically, when I sat down with Frank Durnsball, he actually crossed out a lot of the stuff that
Oh,
was
really?
okay with the planning commission. You know, like some of the like retail, stuff was like, we don't wanna do retail, I mean, we had like alcoholic beverage stores, we
Yeah.
we don't want that, so.
Good for Frank.
It was quite a great exercise, because he was more restrictive than, with the exception of two things, which is the hotels and conferences.
Right. Right,
So it
right.
probably evened out in the end, but.
Okay. The other thing that we touched on, Heather and I have a preliminary draft of a revised timeline. I think it needs to be tweaked some more. I think it can be tightened up. And so we'll task ourselves to do that and get that back out to you. But I think the overall time, oh no, not the giant pages. We need to do some work on it and tighten it up. But I like the idea of tasking ourselves to get this to public forum stage by essentially mid-fall, earlier if possible.
I had a question about the community outreach. Do we want to do, because we've reached out so much with our commissions, for the community outreach to present our plan, we're thinking of doing that during the 60-day review. Am I correct? Okay, that's good.
Yes.
Because the latest we want to send it out for 60-day review was like around the 1st of August. That's our current goal.
Mm-hmm.
So then from August to
Mhm.
October,
Mhm.
we can have all those great
Mhm.
exchanges.
Right.
So that's I just wanted to make sure I wasn't messing up on that.
And maybe even to the point of reaching out to individual commissions and asking them to be part of the resource.
You have great ideas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it just seems like a natural because they're giving us some feedback. So why not make it a collective exercise? Okay, zoning administrator report?
And Annalise did it, and is it on the table?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all
It
right.
was on the table.
Thank you, Melissa. Are you taking minutes on that? Get out.
Okay. Anything that pops out here or that we need to be aware of, or?
And I did, Andrea mentioned in the annual report, from 2012, we had 53 new residential units, and that is
Yeah.
really, that's a lot compared to 2011. I think we had like 17. So.
Yeah, it's all residential.
I know, but it's building out
Interesting.
those pipeline residential developments, so the economy's doing something.
Good.
And I think Jennifer and I agreed that there's like 28 referenced during it, not 30, but 28.
I'm gonna go count them.
Okay.
Come back next meeting and tell you.
Oh,
Okay,
My homework assignment.
we good with these reports? All right, and our next commission meeting date, we're advancing it because of the holiday, will be on May 20.
Yep.
And the centerpiece of that is going to be to complete the rezoning request discussions.
Everybody will see bright green placards go up on various properties. Yeah, we're doing green.
Okay.
We had the yellow up, so we're gonna do bright green. They should be up by the first part of next week. And we're actually getting, they're called like little riders on top that we can stick on top to contrast
Okay.
like the current, like whether we're having a public hearing or we're having a discussion. So those placards can remain and still be.
So you'll be reaching out to those individuals
Yep,
as well
I'll
as the
be-
general public
Yep.
to let them know? All right, good.
So, just, sorry for follow back real quick, is ordinance 2013-5 going to council, or is it going back to Tom and then changes? We're going to come back to the commission for following review, because it's on the agenda.
He goes to council first, isn't it?
The water allocation
Yes.
ordinance. No.
Oh,
That
you
one
mean,
has a place.
oh, that,
So we'll
okay,
be
that's
pulled
water
off. Okay.
allocation.
Right.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When we have to give our items to Debbie, sometimes we think things are gonna go.
Yeah, we've got to
further than-
look at the whole
Worries.
thing again.
Thank
That's why they get 7 revised agendas.
Yeah, but think of those
That's why they
trees
revise
die
it the
for you.
night of.
Yeah.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Everybody had too much
It's a
fun.
done deal.